are so excited to have you here today for our newest Career Coach series, The Power of the Career Conversation. So, before we officially get started, I do want to give a moment for more and more people to come in from the waiting room. For those who don't know me, my name is Alexia Brewster. I'm a program manager here at Forte for the professional team. So, I am the person that kind of coordinates these webinar series for our audience. If this is your first webinar with Forte, welcome. We're so excited to have you. If you're a returner, we're also excited to have you. So thank you for coming back for some really good content that we have today for, again, our Career Coach series, The Power of the Career Conversation. I like to mention that our Career Coach series is a part of our affiliate membership. We have a 3-tier membership system here at Forte. So affiliate, again, it's complimentary, so anyone can join that's interested in getting these short professional development opportunities. And with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and introduce our main speaker. So it's Diane Fennig. So she does our Career Coach series. You'll see her here all the time. She has over 25 years of experience with career development as well as management. So she really is the expert within this field of talking about career conversations. How do you grow your career? How do you start thinking about where you want to go with your career? So hopefully you have questions today as well, because after she kind of presents on the topic, we will be opening up for Q&A. So please go ahead and put that in the Q&A box if you do have any questions for her, and we'll get to that at the end. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to have Diane take it
And
away.
I'm going to share mine. There we go. So I'm real excited to be here. And the thing that's especially exciting is when we finished this last month, whatever we did it, we kind of talked about mentors and champions and sponsors, which I'm going to bring in today again. But people had really specific questions of what are appropriate questions? And we always have a big ask, not a big like this, but we have important questions we want to ask people. And the questions are different depending on who you would like to ask. So really today is kind of a dig in deeper, and I'm going to give you actual questions since that seems to be on everybody's mind. So when people connect with folks and ask to connect, everyone wants to be in person. And I say that would be fabulous. However, if at this time, given the fact that it is the holiday season right now, and it's between now and the new year, people might be traveling, but they want to still honor your connection request. So they might be in a car traveling, but they still can talk to you. So don't be offended if someone says, could we do this by phone? Could we do this by Zoom over doing it in person? Remember, the important part is the connection and getting the feedback from these folks. Don't do it in a drive-by in an office. Set a meeting because you want people to understand that you've got an agenda and you have really specific questions you'd like to ask them. So this, do you have a minute, does not work for this. Do your homework, really do your homework about who you have in front of you, what's their background, and make sure you're asking appropriate questions to them. And remember some of your history with that person as you do your homework, because that's really, really important. And one of the things I just remind people is how do we stay curious when we're in the process of doing this? I like when people take notes when I'm with them in person, because again, they've got their notes and they're taking notes. I know they're taking this conversation very seriously. And even if you're on the phone with someone or on a Zoom with someone, you might say, I'm jotting a few things down here because I don't want to forget. Again, things like that really show me and tell me that the person on the other end of the line is serious about this conversation. So continue to be curious and continue to be curious when people give you feedback that's hard to hear. And sometimes people, and some of the questions I've asked, will give you some tough feedback. Be ready to hear it. So, mentors, quick update of who a mentor is. Mentors, boots on the ground, someone who has championed you in your current role. Chances are they work on your team, they're one of your managers. They are there and usually in a direct reporting line, or were assigned to you to help you. So Mentors are not the only kinds of people you want to talk to and the only kinds of people behind your career, but really an important place to start. A mentor, because they know your work so deeply, they're very appropriate to say, where do you perceive are my gaps? Because maybe as a mentor, they sent you to an Excel boot camp that you didn't think you needed. But because they perceived that you weren't as good as at Excel as you could be. So again, help them to tell you, what do you perceive are my gaps? What would make me a stronger team player within our group? Who are some other leaders and peers you suggest I connect with? Because they're going to know these people because they're right there with you. Am I missing any cross training opportunities? And so people are like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't need to know somebody else's job. The thing is you become more valuable to an organization when you are cross trained and you can help do triage for another group. And the final one I put here is, what advice do I need to hear? And maybe as a mentor, they've given you some advice and you really heeded it. When you come back and say, what advice do I need to hear? I might come back and say, Alexia, we had a very similar conversation about 6 months ago, and I suggested some things, and I don't know that you took advantage of any of those. So when people offer this, I need you to know that it's important that you do follow up. Now, that's hard to hear, but you need to hear that. What advice do I need to hear? Always thank people for their insights. And important, sometimes when you're getting so much information, you almost need to follow back and circle back with this group after they've given you this feedback. And you might come back and say, oh my gosh, Alexia comes back to me and says, oh, Diane, I never followed up, but I did do all the things that you requested. I did follow up with some of those folks. Unfortunately, they some of those introductions didn't go anywhere. And I'm sorry, I didn't follow back up with you to foster a second connection. Because again, it's important that you help your mentors know what you've been doing. But asking people what they perceive are your gaps, again, sometimes that's hard to hear. How do you follow back and say, here's what I want to do about that? Here's what I want to do with that information. So there's some particular questions to ask of your mentors. Then we go to champions. And I always say champions are the people that are clapping as you're running the marathon. They're along the side of the road. They're there supporting you. They're bringing you a water, but they're not sticking their neck out too much. We need champions. Don't get me wrong. They're still very important, even though their job and their role is a little bit different. Maybe a champion shows up to a workshop you're leading because you're really interested in staff development and you're doing a staff development, and all of a sudden you see a champion of yours in the back. So that person, again, they're there supporting you, but they're not a direct mentor, and chances are they're not a sponsor of you. So again, just an important, often a peer, but important support to show across the organization. Thank a champion for their inclusion and their support. Help them know what your stretch goals are for where you want to see yourself going next. Because sometimes they might not know this and they might not see this from the work that you've been doing. So how do you help them know, here's some things I want to be able to do in my next year? Asking this person who's a champion, what advice might you offer? Again, back to what advice do I need to hear? Because again, as they're your peer, maybe they're realizing you haven't heeded some of the advice they know you've been offered. So again, opening that conversation and having that conversation and helping them know what you've done and what you haven't done, because this might be a place where they can help you even more. Asking them, are they willing to share their perceptions? And then giving them some time, because often when you're asking these questions, they might not have the direct answers right now. And so maybe it is after the first of the year, can we find a time to reconnect and kind of review this again? I want to give you, these are the things I'm thinking about. Can we find a time to have a follow-up conversation? Some people are offended when people say, I appreciate you wanting to do these career conversations. Help me know what your questions are in advance. Some get offended by that, going, okay, wait a second. Where's the conversation if they give the questions ahead? But they can do more preparation, and then you aren't having this follow-up conversation. So either way, you're going to do follow-up if you haven't give them the preview of the questions, or if you follow up with them later. And the other thing I like about providing the questions is it shows them how serious you are because you've already scripted the questions. So again, think about how you will circle back with folks because that's always important. Then the sponsors of your organization. These are the people that will speak your name in a room where you are not. We're having a meeting and I'm looking around for the high pros of our organization. And I'm looking at the list of high pros and I go, wait a second. Well, where's Alexia's name? She belongs on this high pro list. Why is her name not here? Why is she not here? And then I'm looking at some of the other high pros and I said, wait a second. This person's left already. So is this person. So is this person. Our top 3 people on this list aren't even here anymore. We've missed this. So sponsors are the people who are saying, who takes on that next stretch assignment? Who takes on that next role? And with your sponsors, you want to help them understand that you're vested in being here, staying here, helping them understand your accomplishments because they might not realize that you've been working on your MBA and you've just finished. They wouldn't have a reason to know that necessarily. But you can say, I got some feedback early on that it was really important for me to do my MBA. And so I did. And in fact, I did an internship here with our organization in the marketing department to stretch myself even further. Because again, your sponsor might not know that. I have sought out the advice and counsel of some other people. Name those names so that the sponsor understands, okay, and they might say, you're not shooting high enough with those people. You need to be talking to this person, and this person. Okay. And then again, from that, can I have an introduction? If you think those are the next people I need to speak with, how can you help me get there? Other ideas you have for me of what else I need to be doing. Again, so often here this conversation is there was a stretch assignment offered and it was custody of the eyes around the office. Nobody wanted it. Everyone put their head down. And so sometimes sponsors have to say, that's when you need to raise your hand because not all assignments look excellent, look really good. And the really good assignments everyone wants, but the ones that look a little like, oh my gosh, it looks like I'm going to be in mud, those are the ones you need to raise your hand for. Asking sponsors, who else do I need to connect with? Always important. And again, going back to if you need more time to follow up, how can we do this? And your follow-up conversation can look very different than this first meeting, but it's still a meeting because you want to show them how serious you are about asking these questions. So again, I just tried to create questions that are a little bit different for each of them, but you can see a common theme. Help me know where my gaps are because that's important to do. Every single one of these conversations is going to have you doing follow up and homework. And I love this LinkedIn, let's go ahead and set the game plan here because people are going to ask you to do follow up. And let's not take that lightly and let's make sure we feed that back to the people that gave us that feedback. And always remember to say thank you. People, when they help you like this with your career, this is very important to you. And it's probably not the first thing that they're thinking of spending time with. So make sure that they understand that you've taken this seriously and you're most appreciative. And again, don't be offended if someone says, let's do this by phone. So my contact information is here. And one of the things I did want you to know, kind of as we try to do this series kind of in order, in January, late January, we're moving this to Wednesdays in the spring term. Should I stay or should I go? So if you got the clash in the back of your head for the rest of the day, I'm sorry. But what happens in January is we need to start thinking about, all right, given what I've learned, what do I do next? And so with that, that's what we'll be doing in January. Should I stay or should I go? And so I do want people to start thinking about, these are decisions you've got to make. I have to say that this, as everyone says, this is an unprecedented time for us. It certainly is. With the outcomes of the election, I've got three different things happening with organizations. I've got people rushing through to hire people right now before the year end. But I have more people that are saying, I need to pause. Some people are saying a pause until after I see what the new year holds. And I've got others saying, I am pausing and not doing any hiring until the end of quarter one. So just FYI, that's what I'm hearing. There's not one answer, but I'm hearing more pauses than rush. So with that, I welcome any questions, and I try to make this very participatory, so we always leave ample time for the questions. So Alexia, what do you got? Anything?
Yeah, sounds
Oh,
good. Yeah, so there is one that I want to bring up, but I do want to remind people, especially if you just joined or joined late, and if you do have questions for Diane, now is a perfect time to put them in the Q&A about any of the content she talked about regarding like how do you have these conversations again with your mentors, your champions, and your sponsors. So one of the questions that came in, and I think this is it's a lot of the nuances of figuring out your network and naming them. So it's an individual who's been working with someone that they see as a mentor. So when you go through the checklist of they do this, this, and this is a mentor. But when they bring it up to them, like, oh, as my mentor, can you help me with this? The person kind of balks at that identity.
okay.
So this person is asking, oh, moving forward, like with my career, because they're a little bit younger in their career or earlier in their career, is this something like you're not supposed to tell people they're your mentor? Like, is it an assumed thing? Is it something that just kind of like your
Mhm.
experience or advice around people who don't want to claim they're your mentor, but literally are doing everything to be your mentor?
There we
And I'm
go.
sure that this can transfer over into sponsorship as well. So like just kind of hearing your experience or what you think.
No, that's a great question. It's one of those it's one of those hidden answer questions. Because oftentimes people are like, I really don't want you to know how much I'm pushing behind you to make sure that you're seen in this organization, because then it looks like favoritism. So
Mhm.
sometimes that's why people go, oh no. Um, others, I wish people wouldn't feel that way about mentoring, because we need more of this. It is such a good way to get feedback where we can sit down one on one over a cup of coffee and I can say, here's what I've got to tell you. You knocked it out of the park in last week's presentation. I got to give you the good news, but I've also got to say, but when you're stressed, I can see you're not bringing your best self to work. And so I don't know what's all going on right now, but I need you to collect yourself, because I have not seen the best side of you these last few weeks at work. And so people need to be able to give you that feedback, and they have to have that relationship. But if someone kind of backs off and says, I'm not your mentor, and you might come back and say, I appreciate that, and I won't call you that. I do want you to know that I see you as a mentor, and here's some of my whys. But I understand that and they might say, I don't want to look like it's favoritism to you over another person. And
Mhm.
oftentimes mentors are assigned in a short term for a job. And sometimes people are like, you need to find other people. I'm not going to constantly be this person. I just have a short term assignment for this. And they don't want that to be a continuing thing.
Mhm.
Um, but again, it's that one's tough when people say, oh, I don't want you to assign me that title.
Yeah. Yeah. And I personally haven't run into it, but I've heard of people who have. So I wanted to kind of lift that up of like, it does happen, but don't panic. Just like, yeah, have further conversation. And
Mhm.
if they just can't accept that title, that's okay. Just
Right.
is what it is. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that because I think that's a really good conversation to have. And so another question that came in, so this question is a little bit tied to, I think, some previous sessions we've hosted. So this might be this person's first career coach that they're attending. But they just wanted to know some important do's and don'ts while networking with people from different companies. So not necessarily mentors and sponsors, but maybe making those first connections, knowing eventually these people could be mentors and sponsors.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So when you're reaching out to people, it's helpful to have kind of a context. So I tell people all the time after these sessions, people are certainly welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. Usually someone connects with me on LinkedIn and the next connection is a sales request. Here's what I need. And that's not how you build a network. That's not how you build what you need. But instead, you come back and say, "I would like to I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn, and here's my why." Helping people know what it is you're seeking, and maybe it is a follow-up career conversation about their role. And I know kind of on paper how you've gotten here. I'd like the other half of the story, if you will. So, but help people know. Anymore with LinkedIn, if you've already expended your 5 invitations for the month, you don't have any more and you can't write me a little note, which I'd really prefer the little note because I want to know what it is you're looking for. That if you can't, then you wait till next month and you get them. Or you can buy the extended LinkedIn, but in-mails aren't read. So I don't understand why they give us that as an option, but it's because I don't read them because they're always salesy. Everyone always offers me things I don't want. So I'm like, I don't think that's the right answer. Um, you can try to connect with people through their work email, but I find that LinkedIn works very, very well. And what I like about LinkedIn is I can connect 2 or 3 people with a LinkedIn multi-person message. I like that because then everybody can go out to LinkedIn and see your profile and understand a little bit more about who you are. I might be connecting all of us because of Forte. I might be connecting all of us because we got our MBA. I might be connecting all of us because we're in the Boston area now. Whatever it is, I'm helping people foster that connection. So I hope that kind of answers some things. It's helpful to me to understand what people want as their point of connection, what they're looking for. Um, because it's nice for people to understand that. And somebody might not connect with you on LinkedIn initially. They'll have a conversation and then follow up and do the LinkedIn connection after. Some people say, you know what? I want to know them first. Everybody does it differently.
Yeah. No, I think that's like great feedback of like how do you actually organically grow your network? And bottom line, update your LinkedIn, make sure that it's clear because there are things you can do in your profile to make it clear in general what you're looking for, because it has some cool features, but also like when you're communicating with people, just being very transparent. But again, not too salesy, because I know the same thing. Like when I get a sales pitch within my messages, like I'm less inclined to want to have a
Mhm.
conversation.
Right.
Yeah, because it feels, remember, it can be a two-way street instead of just like a one-way, for sure.
Mhm.
Okay, so we still have time for more questions. So again, thank you so much. Keep putting the questions in the Q&A box if you do have more for Diane. So I think we probably have time for 2 more would be my guess based on
Okay.
timing. One did come in, and so this is about more of the conversation piece again. So talking about, I'm making an assumption this person has a mentor and they're trying to just figure out if this relationship is a good fit for them. So they started out positively, but they're kind of in a place where they feel like their mentor is not giving constructive feedback. It's
Okay.
more of just, oh, you're doing great in these things, but never about like, well, how can I improve? And so it seems like the mentor's not really digging into that. So it's like, how do you have that conversation? Or even to an extent, at what point do you kind of look for a different mentor that will give you the feedback you're looking for to grow as a professional?
Excellent, excellent, excellent question. Sometimes we have to divorce our mentors when their time is up. And because sometimes their time is up. And what I think what you do is you say, Alexia, thank you so much for all that you've offered. I feel as if I need to stretch a little bit more as I move forward. And so I'm going to seek out some other people to step into the role that you've held as my mentor. And and you might say, give me some suggestions. because if you've really been good to me, but it's all I'm getting now is positive feedback and not really the critique that I know I need to move forward. Ask, I think you're a great place for me to start with. Where else do I need to go? And because what they're not talking about is where the gaps are. Help me know who can fill in some of those gaps and make those suggestions. And it's okay because sometimes mentors have too much on their plate to do it well. So they say, I'm stepping aside. I just think it's important to figure out when it's time to move forward or move on. And if someone looks interested in what you're doing, how do you kind of approach them? But it's also sometimes it's really weird. Like the first time I meet someone going, will you be my mentor? I'm like, hold on. I don't know enough of your story to answer that question yet. And so I usually push back saying, what are you looking for? And because sometimes outside of an organization, I can't be as good for that. But sometimes when people are saying, but where could I take this opportunity? I'm better served for that over what you need to do specifically in your organization, because I don't know your organization like you do and like the people that work there. Sometimes, that where I would give advice, it's hard for me to give advice within a certain organization because I don't know it. I might know pockets of it, but I don't know the whole organization and the culture of how that fits. So it sometimes weirds people out with like, will you be my mentor? But it's like if you have a conversation and then you follow back up with me and tell me, here's some things I've done, then I'm going to say, all right, that person's serious. And I'm going to work as hard as you work um, when it comes to your career. I'm not going to do all of the I'm not going to do all the connections and make all the introductions if you do nothing with it. So,
Yeah, thank you for that. And so what I'm basically is hearing is like do a deep dive in your own network and figure out individuals what makes most sense as far as like what type of support you can take from them.
mhm.
I loved your example of yourself of like what you can offer and also thinking about like people outside versus inside organizations and what the perks are and also the cons are of both and like just being
Mhm.
aware of that and how it can help if you have two different types of mentors, if you will, or multiple people within your network that can provide that support.
We need a
Yeah, so
lot of people. We don't need just one or
yeah,
two. We
honestly,
really.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm starting with one or two, but like, yeah, once you get deeper and deeper into your career, I think it's so important to make like different types of connections and knowing that, yeah, again, as I feel like as you've been saying, like not one person can do everything for you, nor should they. It's
Right.
important to build like that community that supports you through this. Yeah, so thank you for that answer, Diane. I'm just looking at the Q&A box to see if there's any final questions from the audience. I don't see anything, but I am slowly closing to give a moment in case someone's like frantically typing, because I know I've been there where I'm like, oh, wait, I need to
There we
think
go.
to write it down. Yeah, but otherwise, like, again, it's been such a pleasure, Diane. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with the Forte audience and to kind of just provide little nuggets of wisdom, especially around career conversations. I know there can be a lot of turmoil as people are figuring out their next steps. There's been some layoffs, so people are in the job market again, just like in general. So we really appreciate you taking the time to offer some guidance to people as they kind of figure this stuff out. That can be a little bit tricky. So again, thank you so much.
You're
So
very welcome.
what I want to do now is actually I'm going to share my screen real
Go
quick.
right ahead. Stop
Um,
sharing mine. There we go.
awesome. So we're going to go ahead and oh, we want this one. So I just wanted to do a quick plug for upcoming events. So Diane mentioned that her next one is going to be in January. So it's going to be Wednesday, the 29th. We just confirmed all of that. So it's not on the website yet, but it will be posted soon. So you can register. So just kind of keep your eyes out for that. But as far as the end of the month or the year, really, this is our last final webinar that we have for Business Essentials. So we have a future of business with AI, a first look for professionals. So it's in partnership with
Wow.
Pepperdine University in California. So we actually have a panel of experts in a variety of different ways that are going to kind of lead this discussion about AI and what's happening with it. and what we're seeing. So a lot of really cool stuff to come for that. So if you're interested, you can register today. It's next week, December 12th from 1 to 1:45 p.m. So I just kind of wanted to give a little plug for that. But other than that, that's pretty much all we have here at Forte. So again, thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us and to ask the questions that you have and learn something new, hopefully, about this topic about career conversation. So with that, again, wish you a great rest of the day, and we hope to see you soon at another webinar series here at Forte.
Enjoy the holidays. Thank you.